you're using a basic device called a nozzle. But there's so much more to nozzles than just everyday vehicles such as airplanes and cars. What I'm here to talk to you about today is how nozzle dynamics are a very important concept in the study of rockets. In this day and age, we as humans have always been fascinated with the unknown. We seek to conquer every frontier. Today, the final frontier is space. And rockets are the main reason for that, thanks to Sweden's Gustav D. Laval, who introduced the concept of supersonic gas flow. D. Laval was the first to introduce the convergent divergent nozzle. But first, what is a nozzle? A nozzle is a device designed to control characteristics of fluid flow like speed and pressure. In rockets, nozzles help to maximize thrust by accelerating exhaust gases. There are four major components to any full-scale rocket: the structural, payload, guidance, and propulsion system. The propulsion system of modern rockets consists of fuel for energy, oxidizers for combustion, pumps for fluid flow, and finally, nozzles for discharge. This brings me to my main focus, the D. Laval, or the convergent divergent nozzle, perhaps the most important piece of engineering hardware in rocket propulsion. These nozzles are specifically geared to maximize thrust by accelerating pressurized gases to supersonic speeds. Introduced in 1888, the D. Laval nozzle is currently the most widely used rocket engine nozzle to date, and it converts thermal energy directly into kinetic energy. The trademark of the convergent divergent nozzle, the reason why it's so effective, is because of its unique configuration. These nozzles feature an asymmetric hourglass design with a narrowing in the middle, effectively minimizing its cross-section. This narrowing or pinching at the throat is used to accelerate gas to the speed of sound. We call this phenomenon choked flow because the velocity will sonically increase when it passes through a section of small cross-sectional area. 300 years ago, Sir Isaac Newton developed his second law, explaining how the velocity of an object changes when subjected to a force. For an object like a rocket with a large decrease in mass during flight, we find the force using its change in momentum per unit time. Newton's third and final law of motion deals with action and reaction pairs. That is, for every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction. This governing law explains the generation of thrust. As exhaust gases flow through a nozzle and to the rear of the rocket, thrust is produced. Now, when we study nozzle dynamics, we must consider the transfer of heat. Because the gases in a convergent divergent nozzle go up to the speed of sound, they exhibit compressibility effects. Coupled with the second law of thermodynamics, we can conclude that the flow through a D. Laval nozzle is isentropic, or produces no change in entropy. This means the flowing fluids also exhibit reversible adiabatic behavior, meaning supersonic speed is possible. So the flow in a convergent divergent nozzle is a very systematic process. Because we're dealing with fluid flow at such high speeds, Mach numbers are used to represent an object's velocity relative to the speed of sound. Let's say we start with the gas flowing subsonically from the combustion chamber. Then the gas moves to the throat, where it chokes and reaches Mach 1 transonic flow, or the speed of sound. Finally, the exhaust diverges into the area of low pressure, where it exits the nozzle at supersonic speeds. This velocity is then translated into thrust to propel the rocket. And as you can see, subsonic speeds are evaluated by the Mach number. Usually, a rocket will need to achieve a hypersonic speed of at least Mach 5 in order to enter space. Physics plays a vital role in nozzle dynamics. By combining the governing laws of conservation with Mach numbers, we can derive a single, all-encompassing equation that tells us how the velocity changes when the cross-sectional area changes. From the governing equation, we can conclude that an increase in the cross-sectional area of the nozzle after Mach 1 increases the velocity of the combustion gases. However, before Mach 1, increasing the area decreases the velocity of the gases. Now, how does this all relate to propulsion? Well, it follows that these variables can be related into one equation for thrust. To maximize thrust, we must increase the mass flow rate and exit velocity, all of which are done by the D. Laval nozzle. However, there are intrinsic flaws to every design. Rockets may produce shockwaves as gases exit the diverging section of the D. Laval nozzle. As a result, the speed through the nozzle decelerates from supersonic to subsonic flow below Mach 1. Another natural phenomenon is the Prandtl-Meyer expansion fan, caused by an abrupt increase in cross-sectional area. Across an expansion fan, the Mach number increases, effectively altering the deflection focus on the discoveries and contributions of Leonhard Euler, one of the most influential men in history, as well as one of the greatest mathematicians who ever lived. Born on 1707 in Basel, Switzerland, Leonhard Euler was one of mathematics' most pioneering thinkers. He began as a student of Johann Bernoulli and went on to publish over 500 books, covering fields of number theory, geometry, and calculus, just to name a few. Now, one of the most important numbers in mathematics, one that we've all heard of, is Euler's number. To this day, its applications can be used in so many areas of study, including growth and decay, as well as calculating the damping factor of a spring mass problem. Speaking of exponential growth, Euler's number serves as the basis of the natural exponential function, or e to the x. It is the only function whose derivative is the function itself, giving unique properties that can be applied to fields such as physics, engineering, and economics. Now, I found this pretty interesting. A lot of the notation we use today, including f of x, pi, I, e, as well as a, b, and c as constants, was either created or standardized by Euler. His efforts to internationalize mathematics for all the world to understand. Euler even managed to combine several of these constants to produce one of the most beautiful mathematical equations ever. Euler's formula, as it was known, shows a relationship between trigonometric functions and complex exponential functions. In an engineering standpoint, one of Euler's most famous masterstrokes were made in the field of rigid body dynamics. He introduced the concept of moment of inertia, the measure of an object's resistance relative to its speed of rotation. Building upon this idea, Euler described the rotation of a spinning body around a principal axis. He obtained what we now call Euler's equations of motion, relating the applied torque, moment of inertia, and angular velocity of the object into a system of equations. Then, in 1757, Euler derived a formula that would become a cornerstone of engineering. By studying the structural stability of columns and pillars, Euler noticed a building's integrity can only endure so much before it buckles. He found that given values such as the Young's modulus and the area's moment of inertia, we can calculate the critical buckling load of an object, as shown by the equation above. That's not clear. We also credit Euler for his discoveries in differential calculus. His method of recursion states that we can approximate the solution to a first-order differential equation by iterating a numerical formula with a given value and a step size. Geometry was another field of Euler's discoveries. His theorem for relating the number of vertices, edges, and faces of a polyhedra led to a whole new way of thinking about shapes in space. To this day, we continue to study and learn from Euler. Nearly 250 years have passed since his death, and yet we are still influenced by his timeless works and discoveries. I think most of us can agree that he was truly the master of us all. Now, my final topic will focus on a man whose influence spreads across all of engineering mechanics. His revolutionary advances in fluid mechanics, aerodynamics, and physics are basis for the principles we use today. He is Ludwig Prandtl. Prandtl was born in Bavaria, Germany on February 4th, 1875. His education took place at the Technische Hochschule, or the German Institute of Technology. It was only a matter of time until he would make his most prolific discoveries as professor. Perhaps one of Prandtl's earliest discoveries, one that earned him worldwide prominence, was the boundary layer. Prandtl was the first to observe that as an object moves through a fluid, thin boundary layers formed at the bounding surface. He theorized that just as airplanes fly through an atmosphere, as boats flow through water, viscosity and drag is formed within the boundary layer. Building upon this idea, Prandtl concluded that we can avoid these effects by streamlining. His boundary layer discovery was so profound that we named the Prandtl number after him. It is defined as the ratio of a fluid's kinematic velocity to the thermal diffusivity. If a fluid is more viscous, the Prandtl number is greater. Prandtl also worked on wing theory. Building upon the ideas of British physicist Frederick Lancaster, Prandtl made enormous contributions to predicting lift distribution over a wing of finite span. To this day, Prandtl is known as a pioneer of fluid mechanics. His discoveries were so profound that we give him the legendary title of father of aerodynamics. Without his creativity and intellect, the world would be a shadow of what it is today.